Hello, everyone. Welcome to Innovation Coffee. Cheers. Brought to you by ARM. My name is Robert Wolf. I'm your host today, this week, and every week as we take a deeper dive into the ARM developer ecosystem and explore the many things happening in and around this very exciting space. Each of these episodes or live streams will start with developer updates, followed by in-depth conversations about ARM, our growing developer ecosystem, and lots of other very exciting things happening. We, of course, are joined by featured experts, partners from within ARM, our developer community, and we will discuss a plethora of topics tailored for developers, showcase opportunities, explore resources, and bring new and exciting developments to light. Each of these events will finish off with an audience Q&A, and of course, your questions are welcome throughout the live stream as well. So if you have a little hair there, if you have any questions throughout the live stream, make sure that you post those in the chat session there on YouTube. We'll be sure to get those answered as soon as possible. Of course, those are questions for us, the hosts, myself, and the co-host Gabriel Peterson, who we'll be bringing on just a moment, or our featured guests. Now, as a reminder, if you enjoy this live stream, make sure you smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, ARM Software Developers, to see more things like this. We, of course, are always doing live streams, fun events like this, and other great videos that we post throughout the year. So you'll be notified whenever we release new things out to our community. Now, I think this episode is a very exciting one. We're actually joined by someone at ARM. His name is Zach Lasiuk. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. I'm looking at him in the green room right now, seeing him smile there. Zach Lasiuk. And he will be talking to us about ethics in tech. So the ethics of tech. Now think about this, right? All of the exciting things that are happening, technical evolutions throughout the millennia or decade, whatever you want to call it. And how ethical are the decisions that we program into our tech? How are those decisions made? And how will they be made as we go forward and as AI evolves? How will we decide, or how will the robots decide to make decisions on our behalf or on their behalf for that matter? So let's bring in first of all, I'll bring in our co-host here, Gabriel Peterson. Hello, Gabe. How's it going? Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
I just realized I'm wearing one of my wrinkliest shirts, and I am not happy with that. Sorry, everyone. Didn't really take too close of a look at that, but you don't judge me. Look at my other live streams first. But yeah, so not my MO. And Gabe, welcome, co-host. And now let me add in our guest here, Zach Lasiuk, right?
Lasiuk, but close enough. Closer than most.
So I was so off. Zach Lasiuk, welcome, Zach Lasiuk. Zach, so the way I usually like to start these episodes is with a bit of an origin story. So, you've never been on this live stream before. People don't know who you are. You're looking good. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you started in tech. Build a little bit of credibility for our viewers so that they want to believe what you're saying to them over the next hour.
Sure. So I guess from the very beginning, it was basically a coin flip between going into tech or to be a musician. So I play saxophone, piano on the side all the time, but decided to go into engineering, and very happy to do it. Went to Boston University for college and came straight out of there working at ARM. So I've worked at a bunch of IoT type of startup consulting type of companies when I was in college, right across from Harvard and MIT. Got to work with a bunch of their different projects, really engaging, really interesting stuff. And at ARM, I've been helping with a large swath of different things. So I've worked collaborations with Docker, helping them deploy architectures on ARM for multi-architecture builds, working on IoT projects with ARM virtual hardware and a whole host of other things. I played also a fiddle as a designer. So on a new ARM websites, I'm the technical design lead for that site. So UX and UI buttons and all the design decisions that go into a website. And now I'm helping Robert with the ARM software developer program. Robert and Gabe, of course. So very wide swath of experience in tech, and most applicable probably to this conversation, a member of the AI ethics committee here at ARM, and helped springboard ARM to join as a founding member in the C2PA, the Coalition for Content and Provenance Authority. Authentication. It's so long I can't even remember the full name. But I'm sure we'll be chatting about both of those initiatives over the course of this discussion.
Thank you, Zach. Yes, and so you just mentioned the ARM Developer Program, and I want to kind of I guess share the link here one more time because I've mentioned it over the last couple episodes that we've had since our relaunch. The ARM Developer Program was created by a large group of people within ARM. Lots of thought and effort went into this, and if you are a ARM developer and you would like to become part of this program, I highly, highly recommend visiting this website. You can go apply to become or you can go and just simply enter some information and become a member of the ARM Software Developer Program, or you can apply to become an ARM ambassador. And there are different perks to these different tiers that you can get into, but I definitely suggest going and checking out this website. We'll share it in the YouTube chat so that you all can click it a little easier. But thank you, Zach, for mentioning that again. So the theme today, ethics of tech. Tell us what that means. I tried summarizing it in the introduction, but tell us a little bit about what that means to you or what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, it's a bit of a vague topic, and that's kind of the problem, is that it's so vague, and just bringing it up can bring to mind so many different types of problems that it's almost hard to tackle and talk about it as a cohesive unit. I mean, we could talk about teen mental health addiction. We can talk about misinformation running rampant, echo chambers, algorithms that deepen divisions, imbalances of power and privacy, coercion and pushing people to buy things without their consent. I mean, there's a whole host of problems that we could talk about. But I would actually posit that there is one overarching problem that informs all the other symptoms. And that one problem is that we have godlike technology, medieval institutions, and Paleolithic emotions. And that's not my quote, that's from the Center for Humane Technology. I know there's a couple different sites that we'll link to for those interested to learn more. Center for Humane Technology is an excellent resource in this space, as is the Consilience Project, very thoughtful. But that one problem, having godlike technology, that AI that we don't know how it works, there's amazing things that we have done and will continue to do with technology. We have these medieval institutions, so our government systems, our social systems, which are set up in medieval times to work at a slow pace, right, by design, but it can't match the speed that technology can. You can see those problems in how we struggle to legislate technology effectively today. And ultimately, we as humans, we have Paleolithic emotions. We're hardwired, just like lizards are hardwired. We see something in the jungle and we react to it. We react differently to different colors as signs of danger. I mean, these are all problems that, I kind of like to summarize it that we are always worried in science fiction of robots getting smarter than us. In Terminator, they're smarter than the smartest of us and they take over the world as a result. But I would actually posit a bigger problem is when they become smarter than our instincts, right? Our Paleolithic emotions that we just kind of react and lead to addictive sort of behaviors. And I would say we're already at and beyond that point. So thus is this talk, to just talk about it and talk about solutions.
Yeah, the thing I think about is, you mentioned Terminator. I think about the moment where, we create robots, we program robots, or, just tech systems in general to protect humans. And their instinct or the first thing they go to is in order to protect humans, we must destroy a large portion of humans. And that's what I think about. Like, where is the logic in protecting humans? But the only way to truly protect humans, going based on that quote that you were talking about earlier, is I would say to destroy humans. How do you protect them? Destroy a large amount of them. So I don't know. But maybe that conclusion gets drafted into a consensus in the robot mind. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of similar to the Thanos logic, right? To save people, we just gotta delete half of them. But yeah, I mean, it kind of stems back to what are you designing? What's the ultimate purpose? What are they optimized to do? Protect humans. Well, what does that mean? What do they interpret that to mean? And that's a very interesting problem in AI systems in general, is how do you specify an appropriate boundary for them? Can you even do that? Or can any system out logic yourself? So that field of study is fascinating.
Yeah, we have a comment here in the chat from Dale, Hybrid Robotics. He says, "I am definitely concerned about how fast we are adopting AI technologies. I have already had 2 different accounts suspended for terms of service violations, which are both wrong. I suspect this is AI fault." So yeah, actually, I've had situations like this happen too, where not necessarily suspension, but certain posts get pulled down because they suspect a violation in terms of service, where in reality, there was no violation, but there was something deduced on their system that it happened.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I mean, that's the more innocuous version, the more annoying and innocuous version of AI systems kind of running rampant and doing things that you don't intend, right? False positives. The more sinister version of that is being, rejecting a mortgage application because the wrong, there's bias inherent in a system just based off of what data you're providing it. I mean, these are all scalability problems that AI is helping solve, cutting costs, making things more efficient. But the cost of that is kind of embedding these systematic problems that can be more easily sorted out at a human level, but are turning so opaque and nebulous at the robotic level. So I share your concern, Dale, for sure.
Awesome. Gabe, did you want to comment on anything here?
Yeah, so one of the things that was making me think of, especially going back to the Terminator reference, is that a lot of this is, it seems like if you make the machine learning model too vague, and you just give it like your validation set is not good enough. When you test against it, when you do your test sets and everything, you just tell it, okay, this is what success looks like, and you make it very vague. It's just and then you let it loose without fine tuning it. Then yeah, it can do all of these things that it considers success. I know there's a cool video. It's probably like a year old now, where someone teaches a bipedal model to walk in Unity using machine learning algorithm. And the way it ends up, like, it's goofy, like the thousands of times they run it, like, till it actually works. But the final result works, but it looks nothing like how people actually walk. It's like flailing all over the place, but to it, it was a success. It's like the end goals that it was tailored to meet were met. So if we're not specific enough with what we define as a success, then the machine doesn't care. It doesn't have an opinion.
Yeah, right. That's a really interesting. I think I heard about that exact situation as well. I think it was done with inverse training techniques, and it was essentially that concept. And I'm not an expert in that field for sure, but I think the overall concept is, instead of providing them with these training sets where they base their decisions off of, they base it off of their own, experience in doing a task. And like you said, fail a bunch and a bunch and a bunch, and then it comes up with just solving the problem when it's met. But it's without providing that labeled training set data.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would still consider us, in human terms, we've been discovering AI for, a century, AI algorithms and techniques. We've got many more centuries to go and different techniques to use. So I think we're just at the start of what's possible there. But maybe to go back to the overall point of this talk, there's so many ethical angles that technology is getting into. The more it explodes and touches everywhere. I mean, we work at ARM, we know technology touches everywhere, and it's part of what excites us of working here. I love working at ARM because of that. But just the importance of us and our entire ecosystem. We can't really just design systems and not think about this stuff anymore because of how popular and how ubiquitous it's becoming in getting a loan, in driving a car, in interacting with people, communicating. All of this is through technology. And so us as technologists need to actively design with this sort of thing in mind, protecting the well-being, building our collective capacity to address our most urgent challenges. Those are the things that I think us as technologists can really focus on in the future here.
So Zach, I noticed in our notes for the episode today, we have three kind of, I think, main areas here. One is defining the problem. Two is defining the solution, or at least the solution that maybe you have come up with. And then three is providing some specific examples. So let's put these into buckets here, and let's kind of talk about each little bucket. So let's define the problem. Tell us. I know you've kind of we've already kind of like overviewed it, but let's look at more specifics. What do you view as the problem here in terms of ethics and tech, and where we are right now? Define it for us.
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, it's easiest to summarize it as that there's godlike technology, we have medieval institutions, and we have Paleolithic emotions. And fundamentally, that's causing a clash. But I would also posit that, also at a very high level, technology business models aren't reflecting the pains that are coming with these unethical decisions that are being made. It's basically being put under the balance sheet as externalities to consider. Some other part of society or someone else deals with it, right? But in general, this attention-seeking, social media companies being free to use, but it comes at the cost of attention and privacy and things like that. I would see that business model, yes, data extraction as another fundamental problem that we have.
Okay, so that's good. So we've defined the problem. Now, what about the solution?
Yeah, so the solutions, there's different lever points, and obviously the two problems I laid out have to be addressed at a really high lever point in systems, in government, in society, in business models. But there's a lot that us as technologists can also do, more with the short term and on the ground solutions. And those are with, taking into account as we're designing, making sure that we're taking into account these moral decisions and implications of what we're designing. And there's a couple, maybe to your next point, of some specific examples we can go through of what that looks like when it doesn't happen and what it could look like if we design with ethics in mind.
So if we think back, like throughout history, right, before, I want to say, what do we call it? Electronics tech, right? We still had there was always technology, and we could call it technology, but before we get into the electronical tech era, we've always found these biases, right? And I don't want to go too much into religion or gender classifications and things like this, but throughout history, you can find examples of, the hierarchies keeping the people down through religion or through gender or through race and all of these different things, and implementing systems to maintain these biases, right? And now we're seeing similar things happen in tech, or this is a question. Are we seeing these similar things happen in tech? Are these biases being programmed into these tech entities that we are using, these automated systems that judge what we're putting out there? Are we being judged by who we are without a human involved?
Short answer, yes. I mean, technology has to be built by people still. And we have, as you said, all the messy biases and past conceptions of the past, and the new things we create are just reveal that. Now, I think technology, it amplifies them because of two things that haven't happened previously. We've never been able to have one piece of a thing, one technology, scale so widely, and just one piece of technology being able to scale so widely and being able to target people so specifically. So there's so many specifically, ads can micro-target people with incredible accuracy. But in general, there's a piece of technology to do almost anything nowadays. And it's being done at such a wide scale worldwide. And there's these individual single companies or single technological points of failure that are exacerbating the problems that you just outlined.
Yes. So I'm looking at some of the examples you've provided here as specific examples to, I want to say, either manipulation of the people being affected by this tech, and or just general bias being included in this tech. Could you provide some of these examples? Could you highlight some of these where we could actually see it in real time right now? Maybe someone watching has actually experienced. I personally have experienced some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first primal examples of both bias and kind of unethical design and how things are implemented is kind of in social media apps in all of our pockets, and how we interact with them or how we're expected to. So, I would definitely recommend, Robert put it in the chat, the Center for Humane Technology. They have an excellent podcast called Your Undivided Attention, and it covers a lot of these specific examples really, really robustly. So I would highly, highly recommend that. But the one about social media is it's really there to drive engagement, right? Keep eyes on site, keep ads being sold, and it uses all sorts of design techniques to do that you might not consciously notice, but unconsciously we can't avoid. And they really take a lot of these cues from the casino industry and how they've been built over time to hook people in. So, they're done that with variable reinforcement schedules. So you can imagine pulling on a slot machine, and every so often, undetermined amount of time, you win, and it's a variable amount that you win. And the human brain responds very curiously to that and really wants to keep doing it for variable rewards. If you're a gamer, you can see this in those loot bags, same concept, where you open something up and it depends on what the reward is. Could be good, could be bad, anything in between. And that makes us want to keep doing it over and over. Using the color red, even something as simple as that for notifications, elicits a sense of attention from our primal brains that see red, and it's a sense of danger for us. On apps like Instagram
not for me, Zach. Not for me, Zach. You see?
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And perfect visible
30,000 unread emails, 432 voicemails or missed calls. I'm way behind here.
Yeah, and to his point, that would drive me crazy. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Every single one of those.
Yeah, we can't cover that problem. That's too big for this. But other design things that are just interesting to be aware of: pulling to refresh. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can scroll infinitely, but if you scroll down, so just like pulling a slot machine, to start it, you pull down and it refreshes the content. Who knows what you'll get? Variable reward, just like a slot.
That's funny. I never put those two together. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, so social media is an excellent example of all these design techniques. I mean, they've had years and a lot of money and some of the best minds in the industry to put behind this. And that's partly why I enjoy talking about this from the perspective of ARM, because we work directly with them. I mean, some people on this watching this might be working at some of these companies or working with these companies. That's why I find it so important to talk about and so impactful to talk about, because often cases we are the ones making these decisions, right? And we can take these things, understand these biases and how they affect different people, leading to addiction and leading to unwanted behavior, and try and account for it.
Yeah, speaking of social media, one of the things that I wonder is that, because of course engagement is the entire end goal. You want to drive engagement as high as possible to show as many ads as possible. But one of the ways that is the best way to get engagement is to increase toxicity. So really extreme viewpoints, the more they get shown up front, the more people respond and react. And so for these companies to make money, oftentimes they want to drive up engagement and they don't care how it happens. So whether the platform becomes increasingly more toxic, if that increases the revenue, then it's not seen as a problem. So knowing that, like, how do we reconcile those two issues of being a successful business, but also not creating an increasingly toxic environment for everyone? I mean, high schoolers, adults, whatever.
I would give two answers to your question. One is at the highest level, just like the companies drilling for oil or extracting natural resources, there's limits on what they can and can't do based on laws. We don't want to pollute our environment too much. We should, as a society, understand that the benefits don't justify the costs, so we should outlaw it. We might be going and eking our way towards that type of a path with this extractive type of business model. We might, and I hope that we do, understand that as a business model, seeking attention and maximizing engagement shouldn't be at the core of how we communicate and the apps that we communicate. So that's one type of solution. Very high level, not much we can do about that. I would say at the other end of the spectrum, us as technologists, just the fact that we're able to have a call like this and all the other resources that are coming up around it indicates that people are turning on to the idea more that they want to avoid these types of behavior. They want to go towards sites and do things that don't drive division and don't do these things. The problem is, where are the alternatives, right? And that's kind of where us as technologists can innovate. And there's a lot of stuff happening around the world with companies innovating in this space. I'll give you one example. There's an app, and some of you might have it. It's called Be Real. I don't know if anyone, Robert or Dave, if you've heard that.
No, new to me.
I'm curious if anyone in the comments has. Definitely comment if you have. But it's essentially like the alternative to Instagram. So Instagram, you can always go on it. You can see things. Things are presented to you, whether you want it to be or not, based on your history. So it can hook into what you want to see. If you like camping stuff, it'll show you more camping ads, and you find it harder and harder to look away. It can show you, beautiful bodies that make you feel worse about yourself, so it drives more engagement but makes you feel worse. So that's the current Instagram model. Be Real is specifically designed where you only open it once a day. You get one notification, and everyone gets the notification at the same time. And for those 2 minutes, you got to take a picture of yourself, whatever you're doing, front and back-facing camera, and you can just see what other people are doing at the moment. So you're being real. Can't put any filters on it. Can't prime a photo and go to this beautiful location. You've got 2 minutes to take a picture. And then you can chat with your friends about it for the next hour, and then you're off. You can't interact with it until the next day. So that's an example of being very intentional about people's attention. Specifically, this time is allocated to it. They're not trying to drive engagement more outside of those hours, and it's respecting people's attention.
So I like that, by the way. I might check that out.
It's fun. Yeah, my fiance has it.
I want to go back to Gabe's comment on I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? A little bit. I feel like it's needed in this situation. We're talking about the ethics of tech, and humans are involved in the creation of tech. and thus the programming of tech. So who decides what's toxic? Who decides whose opinion is better? Who decides why this is toxic and whether this is toxic? If truly we go into a space that is intended to be completely unbiased, then how is toxicity measured? Like, I mean, one person's opinion or comment can be just as real from their perspective as anyone else's. And so the determination of toxicity, who would determine that? That seems like a bias in itself.
So I know that I am in no way qualified to address.
I know none of us are, right? We're just maybe Zach's the only qualified person here, but
true. But the immediate thing that came to mind is the legal sense, and that I know that you can sue if you work in a toxic work environment. If it's a hostile work environment, that's actually can be grounds for a lawsuit. So there has to be some metrics that are already defined, or some standards that are already defined. So I'm sure that while you can't define it 100%, you could probably put some intelligent people that, like Zach, that are well-versed in ethics and have them kind of hash out actual guidelines. But yeah, I think for people like you and me who don't work with this day to day, it is a more nebulous concept to try to identify.
I mean, what was it like? Overwatch, the game Overwatch. I love the game Overwatch. At one point, Blizzard decided that after a game, typing GG Easy, was it GG Easy or what was it, Gabe? Easy.
That was one of them. It was a couple, but yeah.
So if you type a certain thing into the chat, it auto changes what you typed into the chat to something that actually makes you look bad. So it changes what you wrote. Like you're just saying GG Easy, like it's a gamer thing, right? Like I don't view that as necessarily toxic. It's just like, hey, we played a game, it's like, ha ha ha, like good game, GG Easy, bye bye.
Well, and I would say
truly toxic. It's playful toxic, in my opinion.
I think it really depends, because it's the type of thing like in actual sports, you see after a game, trash talking beforehand tends to be just seen as part of the sport. But if you trash talk after it goes and after you win, then that seems kind of like just a jerk.
But it modifies it at the beginning of the game too. It modifies it no matter what you say.
I know, but I'm saying in general, GG Easy doesn't mean anything before a game. You could say that and people would be like, you haven't done anything yet. It's meaningless. But after, it does seem designed to, it's definitely not designed to elicit a positive reaction from the other person. And it's meant to elicit a negative reaction. So I'd say if the intent is, well, at least one thing you could say is, if the intent is to elicit a negative reaction, that could be defined as toxic.
At the core, though, their modification of GG Easy to something else, everyone still knows I wrote GG Easy.
Oh, I know. And ultimately, it was only useful for the first week when people didn't know it.
Yeah. So anyways, I guess, on that note, I guess that makes more sense, actually, Gabe. That sounds like a good definition. Is if it's intended to elicit a negative reaction, maybe that could be considered as toxic. But what if you did not intend it to elicit a negative reaction, but yet it still does, and it happens on a daily, millions of times? Sorry, I want to bring Zach back in here.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that's probably something Zach could answer, because I definitely can't.
Well, I mean, this is why this topic is so interesting, because honestly, these two views, they can both be right. They're both valid ethical frameworks to use. Should it be just based off of intent, or should it be based on the result? Right? Those are both two ethical frameworks that exist. They're not, it's not like you can come to an agreement between the two in every situation. So I think original question as we were going back is who decides? Who would decide what ethical framework is right and just that we should use? And I would point actually that there are examples of this happening now in laws. Like Europe has some pretty strict laws on what is possible, what is allowed with hate speech. So do other countries around the world. And Twitter is getting into some serious hot water right now because they are slashing teams that are in charge of moderating that speech. And if they don't comply, then a whole host of fines and legal actions could be taking place, right? So these are law manifestations of ethical codes that people in those countries agreed is the right things. And that is kind of like right now the bottom of what companies have to or should take into account. But back to your question, Robert, on who decides, is the goal to not have any bias? And I would say that no matter what, someone or something is going to have to decide what we do. And the alternative to having people like us mindfully think about this, debate pros and cons and alternatives thoughtfully before we implement something. The alternative to that is embedding either the bias that has existed for generations and not thinking about it, right? Because you can't avoid it no matter what. It's going to happen. So that's the other alternative. The other option is to let what a lot of companies do today, which is just let people decide, let the market decide, right? We don't want to make a call. People will do what they want, and we're just following what people want. And there's an interesting example for why that could become problematic. You can imagine self-driving cars when they become a thing, right? And you want to talk about the trolley problem, but I'll skirt that for a second and talk about a similar type of problem where, or I guess this is, you could take this as an interpretation of the trolley problem. You could purchase a car. Let's say the company says, we don't know what to do, what decision that they can make. And actually, do you just want to define the trolley problem for those that aren't aware of it before we dive into it?
Sure. So if you are the literal example is if you're driving a trolley and you're coming up to a switch in the tracks, you can go left or you can go right. One of the tracks, there's a single person on the tracks tied up and can't move out of the way in time. On the other track, there's 5 people tied up and on the tracks. You have to make a decision. Even not making a decision is making a decision. It's going to go one way or the other. Which one do you choose? Like either way, you're choosing for someone to die, essentially.
But then you can change it. The one person cures cancer, and the 5 people are convicts. And you can change it, or the one person is a convict, and one of the 5 people will cure cancer. And so you can change this all which ways you want, so that eventually, if you chose to kill 1 instead of 5, you made the wrong choice somehow.
Yeah, there's really good interactive examples of a lot of the modifications you described, Robert, online. If you just search it, I think it's a tool by someone at Harvard, came up with an interactive tool online, just like a trolley problem example. It's really, really cool. And you just go through all those, and you can see how people react to, will they save 1 kid or 5 grandmas, just all those interesting type of situations. I would reposition it to maybe an easy example where either you swerve and the car, you have X% of dying of yourself in the car, or you go straight and you hit a pedestrian who almost certainly will die, right? So the car got to make that choice. You can't make it. It's out of your hands. It's in the car's hands. So what should the car do?
You're saying there's one person in your way. The car is making the choice. This is AI. And the car has the choice to say there's a chance that you kill the driver or the person in the car, or there's almost a 100% chance you kill the person in front of the car. Gotcha.
That's right.
So the car now has to choose to protect its host.
That's right.
Gotcha.
So you could say, well, how do you make that decision? You could let the market decide. So let's sell 2 types of cars. Let's say it's Tesla. Okay. Let's say we're going to sell the Tesla Altruist and the Tesla Egoist. And if you buy the Egoist, then no matter what, it always saves the driver, any situation. And the Altruist it always defaults to saving the, maximizing utilitarian terms. It always promotes the most amount of life. So if you're about to hit 5 people, or you can swerve and kill the driver, then it would swerve and kill the driver. And you could imagine how everyone would tell people that they bought one type of car, but they actually bought the other one. So, no matter what, someone is going to make a decision, whether it's the market.
It has to be like labeled on the bumper. Is it this?
Yeah,
is
there you go.
Altruist.
Exactly.
Altruist edition.
Yeah, and that's from Yuval Harari. That thought experiment is from him. It is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Also an excellent resource to think about a lot of these different problems we face today. So I didn't come up with that one, but it is a very interesting thought experiment. And it's revealing, to answer your question and to kind of summarize. The who decides question, either it will be our past biases if we don't think about it. It will be market forces, whatever makes the most money. Or we can think about it together intentionally. And while that's not an excellent option, it is the best worst option.
So I love it. All of these things. I mean, honestly, Zach, I feel like we're going to get to the end of this hour. I did not expect to fill the whole hour, but we're going to get to the end of this hour, and I'm going to be like, oh man, I wish we had another hour. I want to go through some of the comments here in the chat.
Please.
So while we were talking about addictive techniques, casinos, social media, Sergey commented here. He says, excuse me, my allergies. He says, to summarize, the solution is, number one, develop a law that regulates addictive techniques. And number two, develop non-addictive alternatives. Zach, what do you think about that?
I think that's a great summary that might be a little too specific on the word addictive. I would just change that word addictive to be maybe humane, to make it more general. But by and large, that is exactly right.
Okay, cool. So then Dale comments, first of all, we have to be aware of our own biases and accept that we have them. The acceptance is the hard part. I would sacrifice my own life to save another. And first of all, oh, actually, he wrote that twice. There we go. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. Like for me, I feel like the willingness to give your life, I feel like it changes throughout your life. So maybe while you're younger, you may be less willing to give your life, but as you get older, you may be more willing to give your life. Maybe some people are just born with an innate willingness to give up their life. But while you see true potential in oneself, maybe you do feel at one point that, hey, right now I'm not ready, but at some point that shifts. I mean, mortality for the most part isn't even recognized until you hit your mid-20s, and so you're immortal until that point. Right. So maybe at that point you're like, yeah, screw it. I'll give my life because I'm not going to die anyways. But yeah, I
think that point brings up a really interesting angle about, honestly, it brings to mind diversity of opinion when you're developing a product. Because like you said, if you're developing a self-driving car and it's a bunch of people under a certain age where you recognize mortality, then it might be obvious what answer you choose. Right? How you design a car, because it's just in your mind, right? And the people behind the technology designing it can't even conceptualize mentally what it would be like to want to save someone else's life, or vice versa. So that decision just could be made by default. But getting the stakeholders that use the technology to inform the decisions of designing it helps alleviate these core problems. So stakeholder-driven design is really a key principle towards designing these non-addictive technologies and designing more humane technologies.
And I wonder, we've been using the idea of self-preservation as part of this decision-making process, but I wonder when you're programming an AI for a self-driving car, when it is not a matter of protecting the driver, like all the given scenarios, the driver is safe, but it really is like one way you're hitting one person, one way you're hitting another person or another group of people. And those are the only options.
But what if you have your baby in the back seat?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to completely eliminate the self-preservation fact, because the reality is most people when riding it, they're gonna make the car protect the inhabitants. You're trying to make your car be viewed as safe for the driver. So that's always going to, most likely that's always going to be the decision. But when you remove that from the decision, and it's really just the car has to make an ethical decision, like that's just a weird one to me, because how do you even go about considering that or bringing it into consideration?
The AI has to be so intense. So like, for instance, imagine this, right? Like, first of all, we have face detection, image detection, image recognition, facial recognition. I mean, like, when you're talking about a car scanning these scenarios, it has to be able to, first of all, identify human beings, and then classify human beings, put these human beings into a category, and then say, this category is okay to kill, this category is not okay to kill. Now, are there racial biases programmed in there? Is there ageist bias programmed in there? Do you say, oh, well, we identified this group of people as having 1 20-year-old and 7 70-year-olds, and this group having 20 20-year-olds or 5 20-year-olds? And do we preserve the younger group of people? Do we preserve the older group of people? And so it's there's so many variables in this case. I can't even fathom the decision-making process, and it has to happen like this, right?
Yeah.
It has to happen in a split second. Now, the other scenario that I would put in here is, were the people that you are either intentionally or unintentionally trying to save, were they in the wrong? As in, were they crossing the freeway? Like, what if they were crossing the freeway and there should not be a pedestrian on the freeway, but they were on the freeway crossing, some transient, or I don't know, was crossing the freeway, or, I don't know. What if it was a human that was not crossing during a crosswalk? Like, they weren't on a crosswalk. Technically, they were jaywalking or breaking the law. And so do you save someone who was breaking the law versus someone who would be, there's so many variables. You start throwing all these things in here, right? I mean, all these things need to be programmed in without bias, right? So how do you, again, we go back to deciding who decides, what's the right and what's the wrong? Because these things will be programmed in inevitably.
They will. Yep. I mean, this is why.
I'm so, like, I don't know, like.
It's some of the most interesting and unsolvable problems that we've ever had as humans, right, are these ethical problems. And, I think we have run out of time as a species to answer them, because now, for the first time ever, we are, as you said, programming these things that will follow those orders 100% of the time.
Dang.
So we have to make a conscious decision of what to do. So now it's up to us to come up with some of these frameworks, decide what makes sense, and come up with the best worst option. Because it's not going to be perfect. It will never be perfect. But the alternative is a lot worse.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, Zach, go ahead. We're in the last 10 minutes. We're in the home stretch here. So if there's anything that we're missing to cover, let's make sure we cover that.
You're right. Well, we focused on this example, which is really illuminating. I'm glad we got to go deep on one. I'd like to go wide with some others, just to give some people some examples of what are examples of humane technologies, both in subtle design decisions and larger implementations in countries. So I'll give an example. We mentioned Twitter before. Right now, you tweet something out and it's false. And how do you go about correcting that tweet? I mean, you can delete the tweet. You could comment below it and say you were wrong. You could post a follow-up tweet, but there's no guarantee that anyone seeing that will associate the two together, or that one lives on forever, so you can quote it. And basically, you're spreading misinformation unintentionally, and you can't even take it back. So imagine a Twitter where there was a button that said, I messed up. You can press a I messed up button, where it would quote share your original tweet and say, here's how I was wrong. And it makes sure that all the people that saw your original one see this one too. So it corrects that original mistake. Small design change, but it has large implications on how your mental model even reacts to, or what you can do. It changes your mental model of what is possible on social media, just with a simple button like that. Another example is a one-button share. So right now, a lot of websites, you can just click a button and you can share it on your favorite social media platform. Now, some very simple things you could do to change that. You could have that button be at the bottom of the article, presumably assuming that you get to the bottom and you've read it. You could gate it behind a question, just one question, seeing if you got okay. Or it's grayed out for 30 seconds, and then you can click it wherever on the page. All these design decisions are not, to your previous point, Gabe, it's not towards optimizing engagement. It's towards optimizing cohesive discourse. And that's a small change that would have huge impacts on spreading misinformation unintentionally.
Yeah, I know related to that, like on Reddit, it's the stereotype. Everyone comments based off of the headline alone. No one reads the actual article. And as a result, you get a lot of clickbait article titles. And people react to that. So yeah, coming up with a solution where you're actually making the person actually read through it and not just share it blindly instantly. Yeah, I like that. It seems like a nice solid solution.
I like it all. I like everything Zach said.
There's another larger principle that I'd like to bring up, away from specific social media implementations. There's an interesting idea that's being implemented right now in Taiwan by the digital minister of Taiwan. So that country, she's Audrey Tang, so she's the digital minister, and she's tasked with how to use technology to strengthen democracy there, as opposed to letting it run rampant and whatever the results are or what they are. She's tasked with how do we leverage technology in order to strengthen our democratic norms. One way that they're doing that is by coming up with these town halls referendums. So how do you come up with a good referendum to vote on, right? So do I want to have any decision? You can keep it vague for simplicity. Any decision, how do you make a call? Well, you can maybe, the lobbyists that are writing the bill have two different opinions and they write in the one they want and then people vote on it. It could be all manner of things, but I would, 90%, 95% of the population typically don't really get a say. So how, in a very populous world now, with large digital town halls, do you reach an agreement of how to even put something to a vote and how to word it? One idea is to use semantic analysis, semantic text analysis. Pose a question, people can respond in any sort of ways with their opinion on the matter, and using semantic text analysis, you can determine the semantic center of people's opinions on a topic, whether they think positively or negatively. You can determine that with algorithms, right? Algorithmically using language analysis, and determine how people think about it and understand where a population feels about a particular topic without going and knocking on everyone's door individually. You're listening to everyone at the same time. Of course, problems around security, bots, making sure that people are giving an authentic voice and not, double voting. All of that is a problem, but it's already a problem. Again, to the best worst type of option. So this is just another example of how to use technology in a positive way that I thought was really interesting from Audrey Tang in Taiwan.
Love it. Love it. So we are at the top of the hour here now. Oh, look, Zach has a question here. Sorry, Dale has a question for Zach. Zach, are you on any Discord servers? Is there a Discord server where these topics can be discussed? I would like to say, Zach, after this call, I think we should start a little forum thread on the Discord server. And to answer your question, Dale, Zach is in fact in the ARM Discord. So you want to say your handle, Zach?
Yes, it is Zach_@ spelled AT_ARM. Unnecessarily confusing. Thank you for posting that in there.
Yeah, Zach at ARM. Dale is in the ARM server. Zach actually he hosts. You didn't host the last couple of weeks, I don't think, but you host a office hours, right?
Yep. I was considering following up with this with an office hours on this exact topic
today.
So Well, probably sometime next week, or if people aren't there, but it'll be, the next office hours that we host. I'd like to have it around this topic. I see there's some interesting comments here and things to follow up. So if people are interested, always happy to talk about this.
Count me in for sure. I'll be there. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
Gabe wants to say me as well.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it looked like Zach was gonna start talking. I didn't want to interrupt him.
So we have 3 minutes left. I like to be considerate of our viewers' time, of course your time, Zach. Gabe's time, but yeah. So Zach, let's close this out. What's your call to action? What's the shameless plug or call to action that you would like to send viewers here live and on demand later that are watching this to go seek out?
I would send people to the resources that you sent previously, Robert. A lot of the things that I brought up today were brought up previously by the Center for Humane Technology, by the Consilience Project. They do excellent work in talking about all of these topics. As experts in the field, it is fascinating to listen. So I'd highly recommend those. And the overall call to action as technologists, let's just keep thinking about how to make humane technology instead of just making any sort of tech to make it work. Let's aim to make it humane as well.
I like that. Perfect. Perfectly said, Zach. Thank you so much. Gabe, anything else you want to say before I close this out?
No, I mean, my brain's spinning from all the things we could continue talking about if we had more time.
Here, let me send a pull request real quick to your brain to modify that behavior. All right, cool. So thank you so much, Gabe. Zach, as always, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to have you again here sometime soon. I think this was a great topic. I think we can expand on it maybe sometime in another few months from now, get you back on here. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to close this out. Let me get these. Gabe, you haven't learned how to do the branding outros, intros yet, so no, I'm going to have to do that. But it's okay. I'll get it set up here. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for today's Innovation Coffee, brought to you by ARM. Again, my name is Robert Wolf. We were joined by our co-host Gabriel Peterson and our featured guest Zach Lasiuk, talking about ethics in tech or on tech. And more specifically, I guess we didn't really bring up ARM too much, but ARM is everywhere. And so, if you're developing on tech and you're developing something that is in this particular realm, it's most likely that ARM was involved or is involved. That being said, I also want to reiterate the fact that we have launched the new ARM developer program. So I'm going to push that up here one more time. We have that banner. Where is that? Right here. Make sure you go visit arm.com. You can actually go to arm.com/developer program, one word. It'll forward you to this site, but either way, go check that out. If you are a developer, definitely worth signing up there. It's like sign up buttons all over the place. Click it, give us some information, and then join our program. We'd love to have you there. And other than that, I will say we have one more episode next week. It is an exciting episode. Gabe and we might bring some more guests on. It's going to be, Zach, you're welcome to join as well. If you want to just join, we're going to do a Christmas wish list. So put together your favorite ARM or tech things that you want for Christmas. And we're going to, showcase some of the stuff that we want for Christmas. So that is on, I think it's December 22nd. And that will be the last episode of this year. So we'll be back on January 5th. And for the January 5th episode, we will be joined by Dara Graylish from 56K Cloud, as well as Mary Benion, who is also a part of ARM. She does a bunch of AI work within ARM. So very excited to have those two guests. We'll be talking with Dara Graylish, 56K Cloud, and Mary Benion from ARM. So, all right, that's it. If you enjoyed, like the video. We definitely appreciate it. If you're watching this on demand later on and you would like to see some featured guests that we maybe are not aware of, comment in there. Tell us anything that you would like changed or something that you appreciated, and we'll be glad to issue that. All right. Wonderful week. Wonderful weekend. See you next week. Christmas wish list, ARM's Christmas wish list here on Innovation Coffee. Bye, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.